Hey everybody, Chris here. I am here today to show you how to do a tree ring pour on albums, and I had an idea that I think will look kind of cool if it turns out the way it is in my head anyway. And that was to do a set of 3 different albums in 3 different colors with metallic and do a tree ring pour on each one, and then make that just a set of 3 as an art installation. So I have mixed my paints with just Floetrol. My paints are a little bit thicker than what I would generally do for any other kind of pour, just so with the hopes that they'll keep the ring sections intact. And I've only mixed Floetrol in them because I don't really want a lot of cell action going on with a tree ring pour. So the colors I'm using today are turquoise green, and this is Master's Touch from Hobby Lobby. And then I'm also using Prism Violet from Liquitex Basics. And then my third color is Deep Magenta, and that's the Artist Loft from Michaels. And then my metallic paint that I'm using today is the Deco Art, and this is the Champagne Gold. This is one of my favorite colors of metallic, and I get this at Hobby Lobby as well. So I've mixed up a little bit more gold than what I have in my other colors, and you can kind of see the consistency here. Still pretty thick. And then I'm just going to pour into Dixie cups, and I like the Dixie cup because it's flexible enough so that I can kind of make a spout out of it on the end. And I think we'll start with the Prism Violet. And how I do my tree rings is I just pour my paint half and half into the cups down each side of it. So I'm just going to start by pouring at the same time and just kind of making my cup full of paint. And I want this pretty full. I am pouring on 78s today, which are a little bit smaller than the 33s. They're a little difficult to find. I had kind of a tough time finding these at the thrift store, but I was really excited when I did find a set of them. But they're a little bit smaller, but they're a thicker vinyl. And all I've done to prep it is I did put tape across the back of it, and I did put some hole filler in the center of it so that I've got a solid surface to paint on in the center. And then I used Kills to paint over the label, and then I've also taped the back of it because I believe these will probably end up getting resin in the end. And the reason I Kills the labels on these is because the ink for some reason seeps through the paint. And I had poured one for a clock, and the color seeped up through my paint, and it looked absolutely horrible. So I kind of lesson learned, and so now I Kills the top of it. The album was wiped with alcohol before to get any debris off of it. And then I'm just going to start by pouring my tree ring in the center. Hopefully you'll be able to see this okay. Just going to start pouring and then start creating my little tree rings. And my pour is not going. There we go. And I might have a little bit more paint than what I need, but I'd rather have a little too much than not enough. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn myself so that my color is, and I think I'll just turn the album actually, so that this way I'm getting gold all the way around instead of just on one side. I'm just going to turn it again. You can kind of see as it fans out that my gold is dispersed all the way around the album this way. And it looks like we're kind of going a little bit wonky on the circle, but that's all right. We're just going to tip it and it'll be just fine. And I'm going to go ahead and pour this out to make sure that I have enough to cover the entire surface. And continue to pour this out until I'm finished. Just going to turn again so that I keep that gold all the way around the surface instead of just in one spot. It looks like we're almost covered here, and my paint is almost out of the cup. I'm just going to tip a little bit more and finish it up. And then I'm just going to catch this last little bit so that I don't have a tail. And I'm going to let that run out just a tiny bit here. Let it seep across the surface. And then we'll tilt it a bit. I really love that Prism Violet. That's one of my favorite purples that I use. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring this up here so you can kind of see how it looks. Kind of give you a little bit more of a close-up and see that beautiful champagne gold. And then I'm just going to start kind of turning it, and I'm just going to roll that paint around a little bit so that I can get the entire surface of the album covered. And I just want to keep moving it. I'm moving it pretty slow so that I can keep my rings intact. And just trying to get that surface covered before I start to roll it off the edges. Just kind of stretching it out a bit. I personally think a tree ring pour looks pretty if you get it stretched out a bit so that you can see all the colors that are in the pour itself. And I can see I've got more paint than what I need, which is okay. Like I said, I'd rather have more than not enough to cover. So I'm just gonna let that roll off the sides. Get everything covered up here. And continue to roll it around. Got some really cool lines coming up here with the metallic. And this side isn't so cool, so we'll just kind of let that gold run off a little bit. And just turn it around until I kind of like where I have it. And I think I'm just going to kind of straighten it out a bit. And that looks pretty nice, I think. I've covered all my edges. I still have the rings intact. And I'm good with it not being completely centered. I think that's really pretty, actually. So I'm just going to set this one over to the side. I think you can have a nice view of that anyway. Bring it up for a little close-up for you so you can see it. Looks really neat. I've got some sunlight coming through the window, so hopefully that doesn't mess too much with what your view is. But so I'm just going to set this over to the side, and then I'm going to grab the next one. So I think we'll do the turquoise next. So I'm just going to set my cup up here so you can watch me pour the paint. And once again, my paint is just mixed with Floetrol. I think we probably don't need quite as much as I had poured last time, so I think we'll stop right about there. So once again, I've just done half and half of my paint and my gold. Just gonna grab a paper towel here real quick. Wipe my hands off a little bit. And then we're just gonna create a little pouring spout on the cup. And we'll start in the center and just start getting that tree ring action going. You don't have to be like super careful about how you are pouring it, because if you kind of continue with a circle, you'll get that tree ring action going. And once again, I'm going to kind of turn the album a little bit to keep the colors dispersed so that I don't have all of my color on one side or the other. And I'm just kind of tipping my album a little bit because I think I've once again gotten off center, but that's all right. I'm just going to continue to turn the album and keep that paint flowing. I think this is going to look really neat when it's all finished and on the wall all together. All right. Kind of getting close to the end here. See, we've got some nice rings forming here. And I'm just going to finish pouring the paint out here. And catch that end. And there we go. I'm going to lift this up and reposition my cups. I think they're kind of getting a little crazy with the turning. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and start turning that around and spinning it around and stretching my paint out a bit. Love the shimmer of that champagne gold. Kind of looks like we have a lot more gold showing on this one than the other one did. But we'll see how it all turns out once we get it stretched. Just kind of trying to go nice and slow and let it work its way around the album. And keep my paint on the surface and not let it go off the edges just yet. And if it does, that's okay. But I want to make sure that everything's all covered. And I think I'll probably end up pulling this back a little bit more towards the center. And just want to make sure all my edges are covered. And just get the pattern back to where I like it. Got just a little bit showing over here, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of paint, just kind of help it along on this one edge so that I don't have black showing through. All right, that looks pretty cool. I think they're going to look really pretty when they're all together. All right, and then I'm just going to set this one over to the side and we'll start with the third one. All right, here's the third album, third cup, and this time we're going to use the deep magenta. I love the jewel tones together. I think they're really pretty. And just going to start pouring. Pour them up together. That's probably pretty good. And then whatever paint that I have left over, I'll probably just go ahead and add that to my little squirt bottles of paint that I keep pre-mixed for my next projects. Just mix it in with the other paint that I have and mix it all together. It'll be good to go. Okay, so I've created my little spout. And now I'm just going to start pouring in the center of the album. And I kind of like to hold it up a little bit higher so that you can see how your rings are coming along. Just going to turn that a little bit. Keep the paint flowing and keep the color as distributed as much as I can anyway. And like I said, once these dry, then they will probably get a coat of resin on them because I think the resin just really makes the metallics and the paints come alive and look really beautiful. So I kind of feel like I'm getting a lot of gold in there, not much in my pink. Which kind of sometimes tends to happen depending on how your paint is coming out of the cup. So just turn the cup a little bit and adjust it and get more pink coming out of there instead of the gold. All right. Getting close. Just gonna get that last bit out of there. And then put my finger there and pull the end of it up. And then I'll bring it up here so you guys can see. And then I'm just gonna start turning again. I think these colors look really nice together though. So as you can see, you can do a tree ring pour on just about anything. I've done tree ring pours on coasters. They turn out quite pretty. You can do them on canvases. Thought the album would be kind of cool though because it would keep it more in the ring pattern, maybe a little bit better than sometimes what a canvas does. By the time you're putting a circular pattern onto a square or oblong canvas, it kind of tends to lose its circular shape. All right, starting to run off the album a little bit to cover our sides. Keep that pink nice and bright in there. The whole thing is just shimmering. I don't know if you can tell that through the camera or not, but that champagne gold is just beautiful. Definitely what I would call blingy, I think. Okay, got all the edges covered. And there's that little beauty. So we'll just let these sit and dry. Should take about, they'll probably have to dry about a couple of weeks, I would imagine, before we can actually do the resin on them. So then once they're dry, then they'll get a coat of resin and go to someone's home and become a really cool art installation. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please hit like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave comments below.